There are some families that just have athletic DNA in their blood, where it feels like everyone in the family is a stud at some sport. I'd be here all day if I listed off just some of the most famous families in the history of American sports, because the list goes on and on. You've got the Mannings, where three people started for years at quarterback in the NFL with Archie, Peyton, and Eli. You've got the Watts, who I don't think is an exaggeration or a stretch to say we'll have two Hall of Famers with TJ and JJ as some of the greatest defenders of all time. You've got the entire Matthews family, which includes one of the greatest offensive linemen of all time, a linebacker who should be in the Hall of Fame, another very good linebacker for a long period of time with the Green Bay Packers, and a rock-solid offensive tackle for over a decade with the Atlanta Falcons. You've got the Sharp family, with two Hall of Famers in Shannon and Sterling. You've got the Hill family, including one of the best running backs in football at the time in Calvin Hill, and Grant Hill, the Basketball Hall of Famer. I think you get the idea by this point. There are so many incredible families who have had multiple people across multiple generations go on to have success in their field at the top level. But the man you've been watching this whole time? This is Everson Walls. And you might not know that Walls is part of another successful athletic family. Because as great of a player as Everson Walls was, and don't worry, we're going to talk about just how good he was in a little bit, he had a cousin who was also extremely good in basketball and was a national champion. The problem? His cousin was an absolute moron. Seriously, I don't know what planet his cousin was living on, but it's not Earth, I can tell you that much. And if you think I'm being too hard on the kid, and being too hard on Everson Walls' family member, oh, don't you worry. Because let's just say something's going to happen that's going to blow your mind and make you question how someone so good at sports can be so dumb at everything else. Because this is the story behind Everson Walls and his cousin, and the person who might just be, considering the circumstances, the dumbest player in March Madness history and in college basketball history. Before I talk about him, make sure you hit that like button down below, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we post on the channel. We post every single day about the weird and the wacky history of the NFL with stories that you might not know about. So if you like that, then this is the place for you. And every bit of support helps as we inch closer and closer to 70,000 subscribers. So I would really appreciate your support by liking and subscribing down below. Thanks in advance for doing that, and with that in mind, let's talk about what was anything but one shining moment. Before I talk about the cousin of Everson Walls and just how dumb he was, we need some context to understand just who Everson Walls is, because I promised you three things. Number one, he was not dumb. Number two, this will relate to the story and will be about the NFL. I promise you that. And number three, Walls was a heck of a player who probably should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. When you think of the greatest defensive backs of the 1980s, Walls is usually one of the first names that comes to mind, and it's not hard to see why. The four-time Pro Bowler made an immediate impact in his first season in the league by recording 11 interceptions, which led the NFL. He then followed that up with a league-best 7 picks during the strike-shortened 1982 season, and with a league-best 9 interceptions in 1985. By the time Everson Walls was done playing over his 13-year career, he had picked up 57 interceptions, which ranks 13th all-time in NFL history. For some perspective, only 2 players with more interceptions than him are not in the Hall of Fame. One of them is Darren Sharper, who is not in for reasons that have nothing to do with football, and more to do with reasons that I cannot really say on this channel, but you can look them up at your own risk. The other one is Dave Brown, who made 1 Pro Bowl compared to 4 for Walls, and who had no seasons leading the league in interceptions compared to 3 for Walls. In fact, there are only 2 players in NFL history to have 3 seasons leading the league in interceptions. That exclusive club of 2 consists of Ed Reed and Everson Walls. When you're in a company of 2 with Ed Reed, that is a really good company to be in. Everson Walls absolutely has a case for the Hall of Fame, and hopefully he can get in at some point, because the man was a heck of a player who has been passed over for so long and deserves his due. But as great as he was, and trust me, he was a great player, he had a cousin who was also really good, albeit in a completely different sport. Enter this man right here, his cousin, Louisville guard Kevin Walls. Walls was a sensational player in high school, to the point where during his time at Camden, he ended up setting the all-time scoring record for South New Jersey high school basketball by scoring 2,775 points. During his final season there, in 1984, Walls led the entire country by averaging 44.8 points per game. Yes, you heard that right, nearly 45 points per game, more than a point per minute. There are some high schools that don't even average that many points per game as a team, and here is Walls doing it all by himself. Even though Walls had to miss the 1984-85 season at Louisville due to a knee injury, there was hope that the former high school All-American could do great things during his time with the Cardinals after the injury, continue his scoring, and even make it into the NBA. Alas, that did not happen. Walls did play as a freshman, but started no games and averaged just 2.1 points per game, playing sparingly during Louisville's run in the NCAA tournament, where they won it all in 1986. And the tenure for Kevin Walls at Louisville can be best summed up by a game of what if. Because even though Walls had all the talent in the world, unlike his cousin, Everson, who started at rock bottom as an undrafted free agent and had to work his way up to the top, Kevin Walls squandered so many opportunities thrown his way. Unhappy with his playing time during that championship season, Walls decided that the best way to show the coaches that he deserves more playing time was to skip 4 days of practice and go completely AWOL and just not show up for their game against LaSalle. Because that makes sense. I'm sure that's going to do wonders to increase your playing time. The following season, in 1987, after losing 64-48 to Memphis State, now known today as Memphis, Walls criticized his teammates, saying, "No matter who we put in there, they haven't done any better either. I'm shooting the ball from now on. Put that in the papers." Unsurprisingly, Louisville's head coach, the legendary Denny Crum, was not too pleased about that, and this did not help to increase Walls' playing time, as he was suspended for a game. He did get the chance to play the following game against South Carolina, but refused to enter the contest for some reason, even though he wanted playing time. Seriously, nothing about this man makes any sense. After yet another act of insubordination, he quit the team once again in February of 1987, going from a 45 points per game player to just about done with basketball in 3 years. Truly an impressive speed run. And that's just the short, spark-nosed version of this train wreck. Kevin Walls truly was one of the biggest busts in college basketball history in terms of what we expected versus what we got. Having said that, for as much of a head case and as much of an idiot as the very talented Kevin Walls could be, he always looked up to his cousin, this man right here, Everson. He saw what Everson was doing in the NFL and saw him busting his butt and torching opposing quarterbacks and receivers and making it to the playoffs just about every year, and going from an undrafted rookie with a chip on his shoulder to one of the best in the NFL, and quite possibly the best defensive back in the NFL during the 1980s, not named Ronnie Lott. I know that's insanely high praise, but you could absolutely make that argument. As is common with any college sports media guide, you see fun facts about each player, including who their parents are and what they do, favorite activities of theirs, and most common, favorite athlete or favorite player. And for Kevin, he said that his favorite player was none other than his cousin, this man right here, Everson Walls. Seems like a reasonable person to look up to and admire, right? You're admiring one of the best cornerbacks in football, a genuinely good guy, and a guy who happens to be your family member. Nothing wrong with that or idiotic about that whatsoever. And especially as Louisville was making a run during that 1986 tournament in the NCAA, It was a feel-good story that while Everson was killing it in the NFL, as you can see by all of these highlights, Kevin was on a winning team that was killing it in college basketball and one of the most prestigious annual sporting events that the country has to offer. Except, there's just one small problem with this feel-good story. There's just one teeny tiny problem that we need to talk about when it comes to Kevin Walls looking up to Everson because they're cousins. Just a nitpick, but oh yeah, they're not related! They're not freaking related! That whole story, a complete lie! I genuinely don't know if Kevin knows what the word cousin means, because Kevin and Everson were most definitely not cousins. When word got to Everson that people thought that he and Kevin were cousins because they share the same last name, an extremely common last name, mind you, Everson was absolutely baffled. Turns out, he had no idea who Kevin was. He had never heard of the guy in his freaking life. Said Everson on his supposed cousin, "My cousin? Where'd you get that? We're not related, I'm positive. I've never heard of the guy, other than as a basketball player." And there are so many holes and so many things wrong with this story and with the absolute nonsense that Kevin spewed out that I don't even know where to start. This is an insane controversy that somehow ties March Madness to the NFL, all because Kevin Walls is an idiot. You're on good terms with your cousin, and yet, you've never met your cousin? Your cousin that lives in the United States and has been to New Jersey several times while the Cowboys were taking on the Giants? You've never met him before? Heck, not even meeting. You've never had a phone call with him? You've never called him up to wish him a happy birthday, or vice versa? It'd be different if you weren't on speaking terms and hated each other, but seeing as Everson is literally your favorite athlete, that seems kind of odd that in over 20 years of being on this planet, you've never interacted with your cousin one time. Did you not ask your parents at any point over those 20 years? How is Everson doing? Like, I'm genuinely confused about all of this. And yes, we have our cousins that we barely speak to and only interact with on holidays and birthdays and whatnot. But never over a 20-year period for a guy that you admire? That should have been the first big flashing red flag that you're not cousins. That's like saying I love Scott Van Pelt because he's my dad, and yet I've never interacted with him in my life and only know him through watching SportsCenter every night. I cannot believe I'm actually saying this, but I genuinely believe that Kevin Walls thinks that anyone with the same last name as him is a cousin. I think he doesn't know what a cousin is. Seriously, how else can you describe this? Kevin's last name is Walls. Everson's last name is Walls. Would you look at that? They're both cousins. Lamar Jackson is a heck of a quarterback, don't get me wrong, but he has no talent compared to his cousin, Michael. What a singer that man was. Josh Allen? I know he won MVP and all, but come back to me when he can have a successful sitcom like his cousin Tim had on ABC all of those years. Aaron Rodgers is one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play this sport, but I don't see him inspiring the youth of America and teaching great lessons to kids like his cousin, Mr. did. I don't get why people are saying that Aaron Rodgers can't run for president when his cousin successfully ran the land of make-believe for over 30 years. Genuinely, how on earth do you think that this man right here, Everson Walls, is your cousin when you've never met the guy, have never had any contact with him, have no DNA tracing to back it up, and have no familial connections with him? No one is saying that you can't admire the guy for how good he is as a football player. But to say that you admire him because he's your cousin, and you're not even cousins, with all you share being a last name, which, last time I checked, does not make you cousins? I've got nothing. Genuinely, I've got nothing here. So here's a lesson to anyone watching this video. Just because your last name is the same as someone else's last name doesn't mean that you are related and are cousins. Especially if the last name is super common and especially if you've never had any interaction, directly or indirectly, with that person in your life. Reggie Bush was a great running back. He is in no way related to the 41st or the 43rd President of the United States. Calvin Johnson is one of the greatest receivers to ever play the sport. He is not related to The Rock. Julio Jones is one of the best receivers ever. He is not related to the voice of Darth Vader and Mufasa. That is not the definition of a cousin. Yet for some reason, Kevin Walls, 2 years into an actual college education, seemed to think that he was related to this man right here, Everson, despite no evidence suggesting that. Because during the NCAA tournament in 1986, thanks to this man right here, the familial walls for Kevin Walls came crumbling down. Be sure to like and subscribe if you have not done so already, as it helps the channel out a lot, and check out my other channels, JG8 for the history of college football, JG7 for the history of baseball, and JG9 News, where we talk about all things happening in the NFL. Join me every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, where we'll play live NFL trivia for cash prizes. And make sure to join me live, as we're on stream just about every single day. And thanks to all our Patreon members and our YouTube members for helping out the channel. See how you become a member and show your support financially in the description down below.